Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Over the Bridge podcast. It's your boy, Bilal, as ever, saying hello. But today's a very special and interesting episode because I'm not joined, as usual, by my boys Kwaku or Patrick, who's still gallivanting, man. That guy is still dancing wherever he's dancing. But today I'm joined by one of our old regulars who's now going to say he's a regular guest, isn't it? Mr. Thomas.
Oh,
Thomas Swift. Welcome back.
welcome. Hi, B. How you doing? You okay?
Yeah, man.
No, I'm going to ask that first, because I'm the person that always asks that, by the way. How you doing? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm actually good. I've had
Yeah.
like a very chilled week. I was supposed to be on holiday, but I didn't go because I decided I needed to rest here
Just to chill
instead.
out. That's good, though.
I did it you, actually. That's what you normally do.
Yeah, that's
You
what I
never
do.
go on holiday. You always rest here. But I decided to do that myself,
That's good.
which is a good week I've had.
It's good.
What about you, man?
I'm all right,
what's,
man. I'm all right. I'm coming over a little bit of a bug. I'm over the worst of it, but I had it was a little bit of a bug going around. So you may have to excuse me a little bit, but it's good. It's good. I've come out of what I describe as sort of retirement, if you will. I feel like Nines and all of that. He was about to go into retirement, quit while you're ahead.
Yeah.
So I'm out of retirement. And now as a guest on the podcast, but honestly, life is lifing, and I can't complain. But it's good. It is actually good to be here, for those of you who have listened to us for a long time. We're in a very special place. We're in Brent's studio, actually, and I'm sat in my regular seat. We had seats, when we were kind of.
I'm even sat in mine. I just clocked.
It's regular. I'm in my comfortable armchair over here, so I kind of. I'm sort of reminiscing as I sit here, actually, of all the conversations we had over. God, it's been a long time now, So we're doing this
because I said to Brent just before we started recording that the last time I recorded here, I wasn't yet a dad, and I now have a 3.5-year-old child.
Wow.
So it's been a long time since we've sat in these specific places.
It's like a lifetime ago,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And life's been lifing.
Yeah.
In many ways.
It has, but I feel like we've all lived. We've discussed this kind of off mic, off camera, but we've all lived like multiple lives in the last, probably since the onset of COVID. A lot of I left the country, I came back, now here, kind of firmly footed here, and I just kind of have seen the way that the world at large has changed, and it just feels crazy, even in the space of, say, 4 years or 5 years, whatever it is, And I'm just I'm amazed by it, but we've all kind of just gone through various things and things like that. So I sometimes feel like a couple of things. I feel like one, world's kind of gone crazy or backwards or whatever you want to call it. Which is weird, and it just makes me. I feel like we're living in some kind of like Twilight Zone simulation. The way that the world is moving, for various reasons, I think. But yeah, no. Honestly, life is good. Life is good, and just to for those of you who are wondering why I'm here as a guest, just because, I don't know. I just sort of, I quite frankly, I think for everyone, I'd like to live a shy and retiring life, as these guys know.
What's very funny is that's the same words that me and Quake used to describe ourselves on the last episode when we talked about Patrick being gallivanting in Thailand, eating whatever he's eating and having
Eating
fun.
a pad thai or something.
And we said we're now living life through him. But now you're saying you're back here to tell us that you're also shy and retiring.
Yeah, I am. I live a very peaceful life. I live I've sort of. I've moved out and, where I live, and I've sort of, I
bought a house?
I did buy a house, thank God Almighty, thank you. Years of saving and that. No, we thank God and all, years of saving. So I was able to do that, locked in, thank God, a great rate before they went up to 5-6% now, which the maths doesn't really make sense on 5-6%. And, this is not investment advice for anyone, but I would say that if you think about what the world central banks are doing, so the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank and the Bank of England, those are the main central banks, they're all starting to decrease rates, actually. So those people that are thinking about it, I'd say you just probably have to wait a little bit, get your savings together so you can save a bit more. And actually you might, I see rates are coming down, but you could pay 4%, maybe 3% or something if you wait for a certain period of time than you do it now. But so I paid a good rate, so I'm okay. There's something that I feel very, and now being even on the other side of that, I feel very blessed, you know what I mean? To have that kind of, I wouldn't say it's not security as such. That's not the way I would describe it, but to have something which is a fixed cost for a period of time and being able to budget around that. And that's actually, I feel in a very privileged position, I think. So, you know, but that's part of, you know, the adulting really begins because most people know I was living with mum prior to that, actually.
Well, you were in Geneva.
I was in, yeah, it's true. I was there, but it had been prior to that. I was at mum's anyway. So, but,
no, I see.
You know,
it's a huge thing, buying your own home.
Yeah, no, it's sort of, you don't really realize because you go through it's a process, right? And it was like a, you know, I think from start to end, it was like a 6-7 month process. From you get your agreement in principle, and then you kind of look for your places and stuff like that. You find something, you put in an offer. And one thing I've actually realized as well within that, we won't talk about this for too long, but this is kind of life update, is the real gatekeepers. There are real gatekeepers, and they're estate agents. They're actually gatekeepers. Honestly, estate agents they're actually gatekeepers. So that is something I learned along the way for good and for bad. You know, I've learned that too. But you know, so that is something that is different in my life, which I'm very proud to have done it. But I feel very blessed and privileged to be in that position. Because I think actually because of policies of old, it is becoming something that is quite frankly unachievable to a lot of people. You know what I mean? I was very blessed to be able to live at mum's and save at mum's, but you know, I realised not everybody has that privilege, even if they live in the same city as their parents, aunties, carers, all of that. They may not be in a position where they can do that. So people have got to rent for a long time, and then that's expensive because you're effectively paying someone else's mortgage to do that. So it's a whole, you know, convoluted path to get there. But I'm grateful I did that. But
one thing I've experienced with you, so I know that you're doing it all the time, is you are now enjoying walks in the forest.
Yes, I go on a lot of walks now, actually. I'm sort of, and we did an episode on that many years ago.
A long time
ago. And that's been great, actually. That's great. I got into it. I used to do a bit of it here in London. But then I really got into it when I was in Switzerland because there's so many paths and things like that. And I really got into it. And when I came back, it just started, you know, now I probably go on a walk, maybe, depends on the weather. Weather's horrible these days, but you know, maybe 2-3 times a week I go on a little walk.
Nice.
Forest bathing. Nice. People think I'm crazy. We speak about this all the time, but the idea of forest bathing is that you walk in a forest or like an open space, but preferably with trees and grassland around you. And you should do it for about in a week, about 2 hours. And you do it preferably with no music or anything, and you actually hear it. And what you realize is when you do it with no music or anything like that, or you put your phone away, it's just the sound of the birds and the trees. It's very therapeutic, actually, because, you know, if you're going to work or you're shopping or whatever, you can hear the sound of the concrete jungle in your day. When you go out to that space, it's just very different, and it just it actually gives meaning to the expression "touch grass."
Yeah,
I don't actually think telling anyone to go outside and touch grass, having now done it myself and I do it regularly, I don't actually think it's a bad thing.
Because I mean, one thing that I've probably been talking about more, well, definitely the whole time since our resurgence on these last few episodes, is I've got an allotment now, and you've been there. And
it's a lovely allotment.
My allotment is to me what walking in the forest is to you. Like it's just sitting there in space where I'm growing my own stuff. And like I'm picking stuff, and me and my son are picking stuff all the time.
Didn't you grow some runner beans or something?
I've grown loads of stuff. I eat what I grow, which is what I love.
That's amazing,
I just bring it back home and I make food out of it. But But that to me is what
It's
that
a
is
very
to you.
wholesome life.
You know,
Who's that rapper that now owns a farm? Fecky.
Fecky has a farm.
He's got a
Very
farm
random.
now.
When I found out the other
I
day,
love
I was
it,
like,
though.
that is so
I love it
random,
though.
but
Just,
also
it's a wonderful.
it makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. You got to, and I tell
'Cause-
everyone, you got to get away. Sorry, but everyone, if you can, just get away, go outside, because what I've sort of, one of the things to what I was saying earlier about life as a simulation is I sort of realized that, and I think especially more for the younger generation, because when, in what I mean is the younger generation, they never grew up how we did, in the sense that we had a period of time where there was no internet,
Mm.
or you had to use a modem or a dial-up to get onto the internet. You had that
that
crazy noise, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of these kids grew up on the internet from inception, if you will. Even on the little things that they, you can, even the
Yeah,
little
for sure.
keypads you get as kids, you got internet connections. And so actually a lot of people, I feel, are plugged into, I don't want to say like a matrix or anything like that, because I don't mean it in that kind of, it can be insidious, but I don't mean it in that way. But I think a lot of people are plugged into this place where their online personality, what they do online, means more than what actually, than who they actually are outside.
Yeah.
And even when I talk to sort of, men and women who are, younger than us, and they often complain even about dating. Everyone seems to complain and says it's trash or whatever, but different discussion for a different day. But people often say the lack of FaceTime means that they're not able to interact with people properly. And that is because they spend so much time online, plugged in, trying to engage in the conversation of the day. And quite frankly, when you go outside for a walk or you go to an allotment, you realize you shouldn't actually care too much.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Like it's so irrelevant.
And I don't say that from a position of all seeing or knowing, because far from it at all. But I just sort of realized that actually it's good to disconnect from having your eyes focused on a screen all the time. I think, I think it's healthy to do that. It's good to see people. It's good to have community with people. I think an important part, and sometimes we see that discussion, it's a regular discussion that comes up on social forums, on social media, is the need for community. But I think a big part of community is actually being present physically, which requires people to actually get out of the online community and he's this and she's this and whatever, and actually just, there should actually at some point be like a meeting of the minds, but in a physical way, and actually people can sit down and reason. We do that sometimes. We just go and meet up and.
But it's interesting you talk about that, because one of the things that I don't know. Maybe you have been listening to our
a little bit.
recent
No, I've been
episodes,
enjoying it. I've been enjoying
the
it.
The things that have been sort of front and central of the more recent resurgence of this podcast since me, Quaker, and Patrick been doing it, and you stepped away. We've actually done an episode about community. So when you said that, I was like, oh, that's really interesting. We've also touched a lot on, I suppose, the political climate with the white nationalism that's happened in this country in recent
Because you had
history.
Messiah on, didn't you, the other week?
We had Messiah.
I've only played the first episode and I've started the second, so I'm going through slowly.
Yeah.
I will get there.
And then me and Quaker have had a couple episodes where we've talked a lot about the role of spirituality in our lives and religion. And we've also talked about our own relationship with health, like our journeys as men, talking about health. But one of the key central themes throughout every conversation we've had is community.
Yeah.
Like this word community and what it means for us. And I suppose let's just try and quickly get your input on what would you say about this word community and what it means for you.
It's a really good question. What would I say as community? I think it's a place where people can come together. I don't know if there has to be a common goal, but typically there might be a common goal. I don't know if there has to be one, but I think it's a place where people can congregate. And I think importantly, they can reason, maybe be chastised as well, but not in a, and I don't mean that word as a pejorative, if you will. I sort of mean as a place of where you can receive correction as a kind of just a place where you can have like a meeting of the minds.
Yeah.
You can also go and seek out help. I think it's this. I think the word community is this umbrella for many things. We probably have to explore that another day. I think because I'm trying to.
No, yeah.
It's ruminating right in my head, but I think it's. Yeah, I think it's a place where people can come together and put their heads together and probably create something.
Mm.
And that something doesn't necessarily has to, it doesn't have to fit according to the capitalistic framework, i.e. something for monetary value. It can be something which is altruistic in the sense that you can be helping someone out or something for not trying to get anything in return. There's lots of things to it, but I think, if you think about where community is often formed, you've got people that come together for football, or people that come together for music, or people that come together for a book club. But typically there is something that joins people together, I think, and then they can kind of branch out on the back of that.
One thing that I'm curious about your input, because you're my only friend, that I could be like, oh, he works in the city. Like you're literally my only friend. I can go like, yeah, this guy's a city guy. He works in the city. Do you think there's a community of people that work in city jobs?
Yeah, I do actually. Old boys clubs and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I think so. I think that counts. You've also got people joined together by what they do professionally. So like consultants know each other, and investment bankers, they know each other, and traders, they know each other. And so there is but I don't know if I'd describe that as a community, because sometimes it's sort of, because the thing is, I don't know if and the reason why is I don't know if I describe it as a community, even though it can be, is because just because you got a Rolodex full of contacts, it doesn't mean there's a community.
Yeah.
That just means you can call up someone as a network.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's a community. And again, a lot of people, I think even people get the idea of what networking is quite wrong. I think that networking, and the way I've done this for years now, I don't think that networking is, I don't think it's something which is all about gain for self immediately, or gain for the other person or other people's self immediately. It is just knowing, it's hard to explain, but it's sort of like knowing that at some point in future that someone's going to be important or in a certain place, in a certain space. And it's just keeping in touch. And what I mean by that is, there are people that I like to keep in touch with, because when they reach out to me and vice versa, the phone call is always very simple. It's, how are you? That's it. That's what I think good networking is. It's not, oh, how are you? I've got a favor to ask you. That's not how networking works. You can't be asking for favors every time.
Which is more often than not what people are trying to do.
I think is quite, I won't say it's bad, because I'm not one to judge and say whether it's bad or good or not, but I just sort of think it's, it's.
There are ex-mutual friends of ours that I have blocked their numbers because I know exactly what they were trying to do. So
excuse me, I can imagine who those people are. I tell you, but so would I call that a community? I suppose there can be, but I don't. I also think with community there has to be some kind of element of intimacy as well, and I don't mean that in a salacious sense either. I actually think that part of building a community, especially when you're kind of thinking about it as people that are a bit younger or thinking on different generations, there has to be that kind of touch point with that, with people that are younger or even older as well. So, I think, to answer the question, possibly, but I don't know. That's the answer. So,
yeah. No, I hear it. Which is like a nice sort of tie-in, because the theme of what I wanted to dig into today, I know that we've had a long preamble, which is always good.
It's good. It's good.
Always good to connect. But the theme that I wanted to really, for both of us, because as ever, for new listeners, for people listening for the first time, what we don't do on this podcast is plan what we're saying that much. We have a general idea, and we like to do it live.
Just go with the flow.
And just go with the flow and see, because I like to have open and honest conversations with my friends, and I think that's what this podcast is. It's us openly and honestly figuring things out live. So the thing that we decided to talk about just before we started was what advice would you give to your younger self and also your older self? What I would like you to do is to pinpoint specific moments in your life when you would give yourself that advice, and then we can go back and forth on this. But if you could imagine, so I think of this sort of question like this, yeah, because I watched a lot of like heroes and superhero things growing up, and imagine you were time traveling back in time in a leather jacket, and you were going, Tom, this is you from the future.
What's your favorite Back to the Future movie? That's what I want to ask you.
What out of all the Back to the Future movies? To be honest, I just like the first one. The first one's a classic, isn't it? Like, why would you not? But imagine, like, I want us to think about it like in that sort of vein. Like, if there were specific points in your life you would go back to and give a younger version of you advice, and also just explain like why. What would those pieces of advice be, and why would you give them?
Oh, wow. That's a hard question, by the way. It's a good... Aye. A piece of advice I'd give to myself is... There's a few, but one's really struck in my mind, right? Is... You don't have to go and gallivant on multiple amount of dates and just drain your money. Because you look back, and I don't have regrets, but I think...
Give yourself dating advice.
No, but I asked you this question, right? Okay. I've asked you this before, so you know what I'm going to ask. But if I take you back to 1821, right? You tell me how much money you spent on going out on dates.
Whatever my pocket money was.
Yeah.
That's what I spent. That's what I spent.
Whatever that is. And so I'd probably go back to... That's one of the... I don't think it's the first thing, but it's come to my head, actually. That sort of... And I'm cognizant of younger listeners out there as well who might be starting dating or whatever it is. And actually that you don't have to... And that also because when I hear... And I don't know how true this is, but I hear that a lot of people want to go to these wonderful fancy restaurants, Hakka, Novi, all of these kind of places, Sexy Fish, all of this stuff. I've not been to any of those. I've been to nice restaurants. I've never been to any of those restaurants. I certainly wouldn't want my 20-year-old self to be going, to be going and spending that kind of money for someone that you probably might not know in 5-10 years' time.
But your younger self wouldn't know. They would never.
No, but you got to have... Do you know what it is? You sort of... I don't know. It's hard to explain, but it's...
Because your teenage brain, correct me if I'm wrong, I think...
frontal lobe and all of that.
I think it doesn't finish until you're 25.
It's true. The frontal lobe development, it still keeps on developing even into your mid-20s.
At that age, you're still in the immediate...
gratification.
And so everything feels like the biggest thing in the world.
And that's probably the bigger lesson. That is probably what they say. There's an expression about like more pleasure comes from delayed gratification. I don't think that's the entire expression, but there's something along those lines that learning the art of patience, I think, is important. I think, and that goes hand in hand. But I definitely, when I was younger, wasn't going anywhere crazy, but man, you look back and you're like, for what? Do you know what I mean? And it's not for what, because there is a balance. It's good to go and interact, and again, that FaceTime's important, but you don't have to break. I think that's the point, though. You don't have to break the bank to go on good dates. I think it's probably something I'd tell myself as a much younger man.
So young Tom was going on dates, yeah? If just in case your mum's listening, I'm just wanted her to know.
My mummy knows, don't worry, man. My mummy knows, so... but yeah, no, I mean, I was nothing crazy, but you know, you go on some dates, you're like, wow, did I really have to spend that kind of money? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You go, you know, and for because now you sort of now we're at the age where people are married and having kids and all of that, and you sort of you say, hang on, so this one's married with kids, and we went out and I spent how much on bloody hell? But
Well,
the
that's, I
game is the
mean,
game. You got to charge it to the
I
game,
think
right?
relationships are such an interesting because they're
Of course they
such
are.
a huge part of our lives, and they have been for
Of course
both
they
of
are.
us in a lot of ways. Um, Outside of relationships,
Yeah.
what else would you have you figured out?
Yeah.
In the last few years that you would want a younger, maybe even more because dating, I think, is something we probably do in our teenage years.
True. True. Do you mean even younger than that?
Yeah.
Learn to use your voice. And I think the earlier you learn, and I think that has been the result of many experiences, whether that's in school or interacting with friends. I think one of the things I'd say is probably learn to use your voice. Everybody has a voice,
Mm.
and I think everybody should use that voice.
What do you say that as in when you were maybe in primary school you weren't using your voice, or
It was funny, but I actually
you wish that you'd figured it out earlier on?
it's probably a little bit of both, I think. So I wasn't really surprising. I wasn't really talking that much as a child. I didn't speak that much as a child, which I know, shocking, I know, and everybody finds that weird, but I didn't particularly talk that much as a child for whatever reason. But I think, I think so. I think that's one element. But two, I also think it's, I've come to learn, and not just from my own experiences, but sort of dealing with other people as well. So everybody has a voice. Everybody has the right to use their own voice. Everybody should use their own voice. So I think that's something that I would probably say as well. So the first thing, even the wider thing is the context of being patient. I think learn to be patient, and not in a kind of, I respect the process, that because that can be a bit jarring sometimes, to respect the process, whatever. But in the sense that, because there are some times where you have to, if you have your allotment, you go and you go and plant something, you're not going to come out in a week, are they? You've actually got to respect the process. So there is that as well, but I don't mean it in that kind of what's the word, in a patronizing way, sort of. So I think delayed gratification, I think, is one thing. Learning the art of patience, and two, I think using your own voice. Now, let me ask you this, Bilal, because I'm conscious I've been talking, and now I probably do like the sound of my own voice, but and I'm so sorry for the
You found
listeners
your
that have
voice.
not been out there. The baritone is back, albeit as a guest, with these high pitched friends. I'm so sorry.
Wow. Wow.
I'm so sorry.
But you will sing. You will
I'm not
sing.
singing today. No, I'm not singing today. Not inspired to sing. Let me ask you a question. So we're let's say we go 20, 25 years out, right? Take us to 2050. Who knows what the world will be like in 2050?
Yeah, frightening.
Crazy, the way the world is moving, right? And everything else. But what advice, given the culmination of your life experiences now, do you tell your future self right now?
I'll tell myself that you can actually do it. Like you've been through enough anyway. Whatever it is that you're facing at that current point in time, you can do that because it's not going to be harder than what you've done. And I think I have a tendency, and I've always had a tendency, this is not new, to forget that I've already accomplished difficulty. Like I've gone through hard things in life and I've gone through them. And then the minute I'm in another hard thing, I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And I know that in 2050, because I'm still going to hopefully be the same person, unless they do some mad robot stuff to me.
I get some grey hairs. Or something,
I've got loads. But I think in 2050, I want to remind myself that whatever you think you can't accomplish today, you've already accomplished enough. And I also want to remind myself of joy, because I think that is one of the aspects of my life that I forget about quite quickly. Like I forget that my life is pretty good, relatively speaking to other people in the world. Like not in a like I want to show off way, but in like a I forget. Like I can go into dark places very quickly.
Yeah.
Basically, as a human,
Yeah.
that's where my mind takes me. Um, and I forget that I've also got loving friends and family and a support network and a child and like and hopefully by that point maybe I'll even be a granddad. Who knows? Like there'll be all kinds of there'll
Imagine
be
you
all
as a
kinds of
granddad.
things going on. Imagine me as a granddad.
Imagine you as a granddad.
That's hilarious. But yeah, there's so many things in my life to be happy about.
Yeah.
Um, and I also want to remind myself of what my family basically gave up in order for me to be where I am.
Mm.
Because I do think sometimes there is like I'm speaking from my own experience, but I've also observed this in other people who are diaspora children, yeah, who
Yeah.
live in London specifically,
Yeah.
where there's a tendency to be like, my life is so hard.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you forget everything that your parents and grandparents literally gave up in order for you to have the life that you have.
Excuse me.
Because I know for a fact that my parents had a better education in the countries they were from,
Yeah.
that they then gave up in order to come basically backwards and do this in order for me to go
Yeah.
and do what I've now done. And I want to remind myself of the fact that like that was a leapfrog. Like that's what your family did.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that you're still also recognizing the importance of sacrifice for your own children, grandchildren, whoever they may be, because you're not the be all and end all. Like essentially, I think our families exist generationally. That's what the nature of family is.
They have it's funny because they there's a brand of watch, Patek Philippe. People talk about Patek now. Pateks they do advertise. Some brands don't, but they do advertise. And they say, look, you don't own a Patek Philippe. You merely look after it to pass it on to the next generation. And I think that's important. I think as you probably get older, I think one of the things that I've sort of learned, or I've not even learned, but learned and observed is, like when you're in school, everybody's basically judged by the same thing, which is how well you do in exam. But as you become an adult and people seek to do different things, whether it's to travel or whether it's to become a bit more family orientated or it's to be career orientated, that's not to say that you can't be, multidimensional, multifaceted and do all of those at the same. But people make their choices. And you see the outcomes of that, but you also realize that sort of one decision you make can have consequences for the next, a small decision or a decision you think is small can have a consequence for the next 3 to 5 years or something. You can take yourself back to the moment where you picked a decision and it put you in good stead, or it put you in a position where you think, oh, I shouldn't have done that or something like that. So I think having a bit of a longer term perspective, I think, is important. This would not be me if I didn't mention Nipsey Hussle and what he used to say. Well, it wasn't just him, but I always said it was him, which was own your own masters, right? But what I would say to myself going forwards, and even to myself as a younger person, is equity is important. Ownership is important. We live in a world where having equity is important, because equity ultimately gives you leverage. Having ownership of something, and I don't just mean like owning a house or something, but actually owning something, whether that's a business, and some people, they're wonderful on the entrepreneurial side of things or things like that, or whether you own a concept or you own something. I think it's important that everybody owns something. And that may be contrary to kind of, I don't know, thinking of today that we live in a world where we don't need to go and own anything. But I think that actually, if you think about like the ruling classes of the world, if you will, people that really run the world, they own things, right? Like what I would say is, if you think about even social media, right? Like Meta, is it Meta? Facebook is Meta, that's owned by, who owns it? Zuckerberg owns that. X or Twitter is owned by Elon Musk. I think completely owned by Elon Musk. I don't know the others, but you get the point. That ownership, I think, is actually I think that's important.
I
I think.
I agree with you, but I also there's like there's a caveat to that for
Mm.
me, which is you can own things that are purely for enjoyment's sake as well, not just for like monetary
No, of
gains.
course. No, for
Because
sure.
I
For sure.
think people get lost sometimes. Yeah, one thing I've noticed is people get lost with their side hustle. Like people get lost with their hobbies now becoming money.
Yeah, no,
You know.
I've always been so my opinion on kind of, having a side hustle. I think, look, it's good to do things in life that you don't have to monetize, that you
Mm,
can kind of get out of the gaze of capitalism, if you will. It's good to do things. It's good to have books so you can read them and enjoy them and whatever.
mm,
It's good to, I don't know, it's good- you know, it's good to do something that you just do because you love it. And if you can monetize it, fine.
yeah.
I don't think there should be any pressure to do that. But I definitely think that as I become older, I sort of realize the importance of everybody trying to have some kind of equity in something. Um, just because I think that is fundamentally how the way the world works. And if
Mm,
you think about it, now that we live in this digital age, it's easier to do things on that front and create something out of virtually nothing. And, you know, and it's not even about being rich and successful out, because it's not even to do with being, I think the being rich part is a byproduct of it. But I think it's actually just having something that you can say is yours.
mm,
And you can look back and point to it and say, this is mine, or this is ours, or whatever it is, right? I think that's important. Because what it allows you to do is whatever you have, it allows you to pass down to another generation.
true.
And when we think about it and we think about kind of, you know, a lot of people have a leg up because their parents helped them. Um, Now, I wasn't necessarily in that position, although I got a nice roof over my head and everything else. But that's neither here nor there. But you kind of, the older I get, I don't really, I used to feel somewhat incensed by that,
Mm,
but I'm not anymore, because you sort of get to the point where, do you know, it is what it is.
mm,
And not to say it is what it is. There's obviously some, we can go into this and we can have this whole discussion about how systemic this is and where it comes from, and we're not stupid to the fact that, a lot of this stuff has come from places where it should not have come from. Let's be completely honest. But we also have to live in the fact that we are in the present now. We cannot go back into the past, and all we can do is go forwards.
mm.
We can, and that's kind of,
I'm
yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming from, I
I'm
think, from that. So,
interested
mm,
in that
mm,
because I'm interested, and also I'm interested to find out for myself. But what are I suppose because you said you're grateful to have a roof over your head.
mm.
What are lessons you learnt from your mum that I suppose are things that you would want to remind yourself of
Oh, that's a
when
good
you're
question.
an older man?
She always said to me, still does now, actually. She said it to me the other day when I saw her, a good name is better than riches.
Mm.
And
She named you Tom, bro. No, I'm joking. Sorry. Oh
that
no.
give me cough, goodness. But no, a good name is better than riches. And I actually think that, like, your name has to like your name has
Mm.
equity as
Yeah,
well, right?
yeah,
Your name has an equity as something attached to it.
Mm.
Even we're in Brent's studio. Everyone who's ever recorded a podcast in London knows who Brent is,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Many people may not have even seen Brent's face, but his face has been put out there now. He finally
Mm.
put out his face on social media not too long ago, I think. There's there is equity in his name. There's equity in what he does,
Mm.
right? So I don't just mean it in a materialistic sense, but I think, yeah, good name is better than riches is something that I was taught, and I think that it will continue to serve me well. That, integrity is important. I think that's
Mm.
where that comes from. Is that ultimately, because someone says, what is integrity, or what is good character? Integrity is basically how do you, or your true self is how do you behave when no one's watching,
Mm.
right? Um, so I think there's an element of that as well. I think that is, I think that's important. And that puts you in good stead, because actually what that means, and going back to the original point of delayed gratification, is sometimes you have to make difficult choices because life is hard. You've got to make difficult choices. There is, you know, it's like this passage in the Bible in Ecclesiastes 3, they're like a time for everything, a time to reap and sow, and kind of, you know, there is a time to enjoy life and there's a time to be a bit more serious with life. Do you know what I mean? There's that kind of thing. And so I think that is something. See, I'd say a good name, that's something I'm going to carry with me. A good name is better than riches. What about you? I know, because your mum and dad they're very wise individuals. What do you think they've given to you
I've
that you're going
definitely
to take
learned
with you?
different things from the both of them in a good way. Like my dad has taught me definitely the power of vulnerability, even as a parent, which is something I'm learning every day as a parent myself now.
Mm.
Um, but also just as a man and as a human in the world, learning the power
Mm.
of just being vulnerable
Mm.
and accepting. What's the word?
Accepting.
Accepting. Some words I just can't say. That's one of them. But that one, help. Yeah. But knowing when when it's okay to just be like, I can't do this and I need help.
Mm. Mm.
And I think my mum has also taught me on another vein, like the power of just like strength,
Yeah.
and being strong even in difficult circumstances.
Yeah.
And both of them, they've taught me the same things, but I'm talking like I've learned those lessons from each of them.
Mm.
And that's something that I want to remember, because particularly as we move through what is currently, and well, probably always is going to be, a difficult political time
Oh, I think
with
I think on that it gets worse. By the way,
just it's
I
just
think
going to
that
get
I think
worse, right? Financial crisis, cost of living, all of these things
I think it gets worse.
are probably just going to get worse for us.
Yeah, I think it gets. And actually, I think on that, I think we probably do go through more difficult times. I think I think politically the climate is. Some people would describe it's interesting. You know, people say it's interesting. You know, take that to me what it means. It's just sometimes you kind of read the paper or you listen to radio. I still listen to Radio 4. And I do like listening to it. I mean, I have my gripes with the BBC, obviously, because of their news service and people with the news service. Different discussion for a different day. But I still enjoy listening to Radio 4 for what it is. But you listen to that, and you think, God, it's getting darker. You know, you think, and you sort of, is it the rise of populism? Is it whatever it is? But there is something kind of, as Shakespeare would put it, something very rotten in the state of Denmark. Almost, to quote Shakespeare, I think. And I think in that regard, things probably do get more difficult. I think. It was sort of amazing the way that the elections in France occurred, because I think it was the left that won in the end, but the polls would have suggested otherwise. In fact, Macron called an early election because he was worried of the resurgence of the right in France. But actually, I think one of the things, and someone may have to fact check this and correct me if I'm wrong, because I think I may be, but I think I might be slightly inaccurate on this point. But I think when you look at the data that came out of France, and even here with reform and everything else, so kind of as a similar thing, which was the resurgence of the extreme right in France, that outside of your big cities, outside of, say, like your Paris or your Marseille or Bordeaux, whatever, big cities, in kind of the rural heartland of the country, same here, you kind of saw what happened. Now, the fact that I don't think the issue was, because even here, I think Labour winning was a pump fake. Because I think Labour was always going to win after 14 years of Tory rule and tons of austerity and everything, and even you talk to political experts and they'll say the worst prime ministers, probably Liz Truss and Johnson, the worst prime ministers, I think. But it's when you kind of look outside of that and outside of Labour winning and the composition of the House, you think, we're going through a difficult time. And I don't think it gets any easier. So I think people just got to be, keep their head and be wise. Another thing I got taught that I think is important, that I sort of, I never believed it, but I definitely believe it more than ever, is the power of the tongue being really important. And people can kind of say, oh, this is esoteric and things like that. But I think words have got power. I think words have got frequencies that we internalize, right? So if we keep saying things, or if we have these thoughts and we vocalize these thoughts and they go back into our ear and then into our head, you can even think about it even on like a physiological level, the way it can create like a feedback loop. And you sort of see it, like even in football, when strikers are, when a striker's having a bit of an off couple of games, they got to snap out of it. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like even, what I want to say, yeah, even for the fun of it, is just, I reckon we'll go, it's like, so 2024, 2025, I reckon we'll see Arsenal win the Premiership.
But wait, why is that relevant?
The reason why it's relevant is because of the fact that the way...
That's just because you've decided to support Arsenal. That's another new change in your life in the last 3 years.
No. I've always...
Because you used to sit in a West Ham top. Let's be mindful of that.
Let's be mindful. Come on, let's not... and mind you, No. First of all, I've always had a soft spot for Arsenal anyway.
Yeah.
I've always had a soft spot.
Yeah.
Big up West Ham still, but I've always had a soft spot for Arsenal. But what I'm saying is, and going back into like the power of the tongue, in all seriousness, is the fact that they've not too long ago played City and there was a robbery and they got a draw. But the way that they played, you can tell that what they had been hearing and internalizing was for the first time in a long time that they can actually play like winners, play like champions. To play like that and to play with 10 men down, or to play with 10 men and play with a man down, yet to still come out with a draw is a phenomenal result. It tells you actually they've got the minerals to go and do it.
So are you saying
that what they've internalized and
is internalizing the mindset of
champions? Yes,
yeah,
because they've been playing like champions. They wouldn't have played like that 2 years ago.
Yeah,
right. So I think, I think the power of the tongue, I think, is something that I think is important.
And I think also going back to that word community that you mentioned earlier on, right? The power of the community around you speaking words of life into you.
100%.
Is because I've been thinking about it lately, like, why am I enjoying church so much? Because me and Kwaku talked about this on the last episode. Like, why am I back in the church? And it's literally the word, it is because of community.
100%.
Because it's this necessity of having just people that are there,
100%.
And 100%. I think also one of the things that I think I'm noticing is with you guys, my friends and my family, like the closest people in my life, just how much more I'm internalizing the words that people are saying as I'm getting older. Because I think when you're younger, your friendships are slightly different in the sense that your friendships are more built around just having a lot of fun. Like when I was a teenager, my friendships were built around going Power League, going cinema, basically just playing. Yeah. And when I was in my early 20s, my friendships were built around just partying at uni, to be honest. And then in my later 20s, my friendships started to change a little bit, but it still wasn't where they are now. And I'm conscious of like the other aspect of our conversation, which is as we're getting older, like what advice would you want to give to your future self as well? And making sure that the aspects of our lives, I suppose, that right now we're cultivating.
Yeah.
Like, how would we remind ourselves of the importance of those things? Maybe when we're like 50 plus.
Well, I mean, really, you've always had good questions, though. So I don't know why I'm like, it's a good. You've always had good questions.
That's my job, bruv.
I know, but I'm just like,
I just get paid for asking questions.
No, I know, but it's. I think in that regard, I think what's important is I think the importance of having good people around you. Now, what I mean by good people, because good is a very, like the words good and nice, they there's a plethora of synonyms that can go alongside them. But what I mean by that is, I think as you get older, you need people that can hold you accountable and be honest with you about life. Because I think life can get difficult sometimes. And so actually with friends, you need to have people that are not scared to tell you the truth, even if you don't want to hear the truth. Have an intervention, even though you won't like it. Because nobody likes receiving an intervention from their friends. And nobody does. Or just having someone that can keep you accountable. I think accountability is something I think that is quite important, right? That if I think about what success looks like, I often think it's the culmination of very, very small things in a day, or small things in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year, whatever it is. It's kind of building. It's building on. It's building on something and consistently building on something. If you think about, like we've had. It feels wow. It's just, I can't believe it's come and gone. But we've had the Olympics, right? And if you, especially when you think about track and field, right? It's like the culmination of, and you see them do that, Diamond League and stuff like that, and whatever. But like, you think about someone like Noah Lyles, with his, albeit with I would say his big mouth, and we can
his
talk about
antics,
and his antics, and receiving messages from pillow talk messages, which are ridiculous. But anyway, I digress. But even someone like Noah Lyles, who, I have a bit of a distaste for, but you can't take away the fact that the guy is probably an athlete and gets up every single day and, week in, week out. Even if you think about someone who we all love, Mummy Rocket, will be her last Olympics, I'm sure, because she's been 5 Olympics. She did 5, which is crazy. Shirley Ann Fraser Price, for those who don't know who we're talking about, I'm assuming you will, but there was a video where she was explaining that she'd be up at on most days, up at 4:30, 5 in the morning, stretch training, then just, do you know what I mean? And it's the process of doing it. You don't do 5 Olympics. That's a level of greatness, do you know what I mean? This one was a whole disgrace, her not being let in and whatever else, but you don't, that if you think about that as a kind of representation of what success is, we only see a few moments of that. We see seconds of that at the Olympics, right? We've only seen in 5 Olympics, we've only seen a run for maybe just one event, 100, 200.
Yeah, probably just
we've seen
a few hundred seconds
in the last 20 years. We've seen a run for under a minute. If we're talking about the finals of the finals, of course, because there'll be more heats and everything. But so all in all, we've probably seen a run for about 5 minutes at the Olympics, actual running time. But there is dedication. There's so much graft. There. Even people that are marathon runners, right? People that do marathons. I know there's this whole fad coming around about people going running and everything else. And I'm laughing because I'm like, I did that 10 years ago. I don't want to do that now, But it's good. I love it. But there's good people getting healthy. But, people say that the marathon's 26 miles? 26, it is 26 miles, 48 kilometers. They say on average, you probably run about 600-700 miles to get to that point where you can comfortably do the 26 miles. It's the consistency that you need. It's the keeping yourself accountable. It's the boring. Because actually, one thing I've also come to accept, and I think I have to tell myself this, and I think a lot of people may not, especially if you're a bit younger, you don't have an appreciation for the fact that life can be very boring sometimes. And there is the mundane part of life. Because you can't eat out every day. I mean, you could, but eventually you learn for your own health and everything else. You don't want to do.
I literally just came from Nando's.
Oh, did you? Enjoyment,
yeah.
But, it's sort of like, I never understood why people meal prep for a long time. I never got that. But now as I'm older, I have an appreciation for it. Do I do it all the time? No, I don't. But I do it more than I've ever done it, because it's dealing with the mundane parts of life. And that's kind of, I think that, that feeds into a lot of that. So
there's something, okay, because I'm conscious of our time on this episode and being back in this place and all of this. And I want to there's a conversation I have with my son at the end of every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, before I give him his stickers on his sticker chart.
I think adults should get stickers, by the way.
You want stickers? For
I'd
what?
take one. Showing up for the day. I'll put one on my fridge. I would. I want stickers.
I'll get you some stickers.
Yeah, man. The big gold shiny ones. Yeah.
But a conversation I have with him, with your godchild at the end of every day, is I sit him down and I say, what are you proud of that you've done today?
Yeah.
And then what do you think you deserve a sticker for? And then I'll give him stickers for other things as well. But I want him to sit there at 3 years old and vocalize to me what are the things that he's proud of. Now,
it's deep, you know.
Yeah, I want to instill a sense of just pride. I think it's important that we are proud of ourselves, particularly as young men growing up with a lot of pressures, and you sometimes lose sight of what you should be proud of about yourself. But I'm curious to hear, with you talking about graft and dedication, because it was making me think, as your friend, that is something that I've seen you do in your own career for many, many years now. But maybe you want a sticker for something else, yeah? So if I had to give, let's ask you, let me talk to you like you're him. What are you proud of?
What am I proud
that you
of?
think you should have a sticker for?
Wow. What am I proud of? Oof. I've got to think about that one, you know. I do have to think. Might be a discussion off air, to be honest.
Yeah?
Yeah, probably be a discussion off air. Just work doesn't count. That's just whatever. That's, you know, that's another thing. I think as you get older, I also think that there's a time for everything. There's a time to graft really hard and tough and whatever. But, you know, as we are now seeing, what do you get if you make it to the Rock Nation brunch as a result of grinding your backside off? Probably not much. So there's got to be more. It has to be holistic, you know. And I think everyone has to have an identity in themselves. So I think also at some point, that's what I'll get the sticker for. So we'll talk about this, but just having an identity in who I am, as opposed to institutions I've been to and whatever. No one cares. Okay, you do. Okay, there's something to it, but you need to have pride in yourself, I think. And I think I have pride in myself. Good. So I'm going to come and collect my stickers, where's the stickers, bro? I want the stickers.
I'll bring them.
I'll bring them
next time.
And I'll wear it as well. Yeah. No, don't take it from young man. But I'll you know. So that is, what about you? What would you, for the here and now, for today, why should I go to whatever shop? Why should I go corner shop and get some stuff? I don't know if they'll sell stickers at corner shop.
They probably don't, man.
We'll find out though. We'll ask after.
I think for today...
Why do I give you a gold
What have I done today? Today I have actually rested, which is something that I think in this life, sadly, we need to take pride in, the ability to know when our body needs to rest. Like earlier on today, I watched some dead film. Like, you know, when you're just lying, I was just lying there watching something dead. And I was like, this is good. Because normally, I'm anxious. I'm like, my energy's like, go here, go there, go do this, go do that. And I knew that for the morning, that's what I needed to do. So I did it. And then I moved, but I moved slowly through the day. You know? So I am grateful that I'm now learning more and more
to rest
and when it's needed and how it's needed.
Have you read a book called The Art of Sleep?
No.
I think it's called The Art of Sleep. And it's this book that like The Art of Sleeping or something.
Does it put me to bed?
No, it doesn't. But it just tells you how important sleep is to the body.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, I used to be, I can do like 4 or 5 hours. Nah, these days, I need 6 to 8, which for someone that used to do about 4 with naps in the day, I used to be a big napper, you know. That has just done me the world of difference, you know what I mean? Some people, you'll be listening to this podcast, I guarantee you'll be grumpy just because you haven't had sleep. Go and rest.
No, it's true.
And one of the things that I now do, because I used to, So I used to still be like a little kid that, I've got to stay up late. But you realize you're not missing. It's like a child. Like,
You're literally
you're not
missing
missing
nothing.
anything if you stay up. Go to bed.
The other day I went to bed at 7 p.m.
Oh, it's
But I did wake up at like 3, yeah. But I was like, oh my God,
still good.
7. That's early.
So even now I'm trying to sleep more.
Mm.
And it's just done the world of good for me, as opposed to you sleep a small amount, then you nap or you
Yeah.
whatever, and
Yeah.
you drink lots of coffee, and I don't even need to do that no more, to be honest. You can just enjoy the day. So the art of sleep, or art of sleeping, a very important book I'd recommend to a lot of people, especially because you kind of think, how do I? And that's the other thing as well, is what I tell myself. Another thing is, the art of time management is that time is a precious commodity, right?
Mm.
People think that money's important. In the world in which we live, of course it is. Let's not kid ourselves. But time is also very, very important, right? I think about Wretch has got a song called Time, which is it's a very sad song. It's a very somber song because that's about him dwelling on the past and everything else. But time is, listen, that's all we got, man. You know what I mean? I think J. Cole had a song called Mr. Nice Watch, which is about time. It cost me a lot, my chain and my watch. They say time is money, but really it's not. If we ever go broke, something, but time is all we got. Some line like that. Anyway, it's been a long time since I played that track. It's just come to my mind. But I think time is important, but also being able to manage time. And, that doesn't mean, but yeah, sometimes you got to be selfish with your time as well, especially when you're trying to achieve something or do whatever. You got to be really, really selfish with your time. Or even someone as a father, right? You've got to be really selfish with the time to try and just, to balance everything out, right? So I think that's important as well. But those are some, life lessons, I suppose.
Speaking about the management of time,
Yeah.
conscious of the time that we are taking up with the New Black and at Brent Studio. But I would like to hear, because obviously it's nice to have you back here.
No, it's nice. It's nice to be here, man.
Have you back here.
It's nice to come out of retirement,
Any parting words or just things that are on your mind to share as we wrap up our episode today?
I think very, very simple, apart from some of the lessons that we've given out, which these will be lessons to ourselves. I promise you, I promise everyone, I like the expression, again, another Shakespearean expression, to thine own self be true. Be true to yourself. Be true where you are in life. Be true with what you're going through. Be true with the things that you're struggling with. And even for the things that you are struggling with, remember, you don't have to do any of this stuff alone. Community is important. So lean into your community if you're struggling. Even if you're doing well, share your successes. It's not just a kind of, it doesn't have to be a kind of negative thing. Share things with your people. Yeah, that's probably, apart from all the other things I've gone and mentioned. But what about you? What would you say? Parting words before I go back into retirement again?
No, I think having these conversations with your best friends are important
100%.
Because they are your best friends, and your best friends shouldn't just be there for partying and celebrations.
It's true.
And for going here, going there, birthdays, weddings, whatever, yeah. Your best friends should be there for just actual, deep, vulnerable, honest conversations where you figure things out together. Because it's something that I am learning live. Like, that's literally what I've just done for the last hour. But I think it's something that we as people need to practice more. Particularly as men. I do think women are naturally slightly better at this than us. I don't think they're that much better, but I do think from women that I've had in my life as cousins, girlfriends, friends, whatever, they do seem to be more vulnerable more quickly than at least we are. But it's something that I'm learning to cultivate within my friendships. Like even just talking about what we've talked about today, like, what would you tell yourself when you're younger? What would you tell yourself when you're older? Like, that's a conversation starter to probably have with your friends if you're listening to this going, I don't even know what my friend would say. Ask them. That's my parting words.
That's it.
But yeah, man.
That's it.
Bro, Tom, thank you so much for coming down and filling in whilst Patrick is still partying away, gallivanting in Thailand. If anyone listens and they follow him on Instagram, that guy has been eating food, man.
Living life, man.
He's literally living the best life.
Living life, that one. No, good for him, though.
And a massive congratulations live on air.
Yes.
For Kwaku and Hannah.
Yes.
I'm sure they won't mind me saying Kwaku and Hannah have welcomed their second son into the world. So that is why Kwaku will not be here for a little bit of time, but we wish them the very best of luck. Please do send them your well wishes if you are listeners, fans, regulars of this podcast. I'm sure they'd be more than happy to receive them. You'll know where to find them personally. But you can always, as ever, find us on the socials at OTB Podcast UK on Twitter and Instagram. Nobody messages us on Twitter. Can you tell me why that is? On Twitter, please. But if not, can you just message us on Instagram, which is where you seem to be finding us, or on email at otbpodcastuk@gmail.com. It's been a great conversation as ever. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back with you very soon with another episode.